guys, welcome to my first sewing video, and in this video I'm going to be upcycling thrifted clothes, thereby making it look better than the original piece. Also, I just want to point out that I'm a beginner into sewing, and this is my 4th month, which means this is actually my first thrift flip video, but I think progressing, I'll be doing more thrift flips because I absolutely enjoyed this one. Also, I'm going to use illustration to show my tutorials, and I promise you it's going to be beginner friendly. I just couldn't film the behind the scenes because it was an absolute chaos. I mean, the saxophone kept getting louder and everything. Alright, so let's get right into the video. Also, this was a total of 10 clothes, but I was only able to do 6 in the month of May, meaning that there's going to be a part 2.
For this dress, there wasn't anything wrong with it, but I felt like it was too short, and I felt like, cutting it into a 2-piece would solve my problem, but I still wanted it to be stylish. I can actually choose to wear it like this, but with this scarf, I can turn it into 3 different styles. This style is my least favorite among the 3, but it works too. I would rate it a 6 over 10 because it's not really all that flattering in my eyes. But what about you? What would you rate this style? I did not expect this one to actually eat, but it ate so much. I would give it an 8. What about you? What would you give it? This was actually the original style I had in mind, and of course I'm gonna rate it a 10 over 10. Also, I didn't even know that my bra would complement it, but yeah, it's not so bad with the bra, but I'm gonna take it off to see how it looks generally. But I love it. Love it. So what would you rate the style? So this is it without a bra. Without a bra. But to me, regardless, they both look good. The point is that the style, it's every time, and I still rate it a 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved the jean gown, but I didn't like the down part. So, two-piece to the rescue. Look, guys, anytime you don't like the down part of anything, just use a two-piece and it will save that clothes, I promise you.
So if you're wondering how I got that look, in essence, this is what I basically did. Remember that I didn't like the down part? So what I did was that I cut from here, right? And that's how I got my top. And this illustration is beginner friendly. If you're having sewing for years, you don't need this, okay? You can just skip this part. But I promise my beginner viewers an illustration tutorial video. So this is the part I exactly worked on. So this part, I used it as my band, right? And then I cut out a straight cut from here. Then you need your hip measurements, your waist. This side should be your waist measurement, your hip measurement, okay? That's what you use to get a straight cut, and then whatever length you want. So that's how I got here, and put a slit at the back, and that's how I got my two-piece.
Now, this is where the real work began with this gown, and I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I could have gotten like a two-piece from this cloth, but I was only able to get a top because of the bunch of mistakes I made.
So if I wanted to achieve a top like that, this is how I go about it. First of all, I'm going to tell you the mistakes I did. I started the top like a corset. When you want to start a corset, you first of all start with the bra cups. And if you want to go the corset way, you have to go the corset way the right way. I was going to just use size 16, meaning that from here to here should be this length. From here should be 8. From here should be 8. From here should be this length 8, 8. And then this 1, 2, 3, 4 should be 4, 4. Okay, I did not get the cup, so my breast was bigger than the cup. And then I think that's basically the hardest part of this top though. But then if I wanted to do this top the right way, what I would do is to cut out a bralette. You know what I'm saying? Cut out a bralette using size 16. This should be 16, but then you add your similar ones like 1.5, so it should be 17.5 or 17, but originally this should be 16. Then I will do my flowers. Some of you who don't know how to do flowers, I think I will put a video on how to do flowers, or such a video how to do flowers though. Once I do my flowers, I'll put it in the middle. Once I do my flowers, I'll put it in the middle. Now this flowers is going to scrunch here up. I don't know what you mean by scrunch here up, but it's going to do this place like this. That's what I'm going to do. Once I'm fixing the flowers, I'll fix the flowers like this. So this bralette will turn into something like this. But then the flowers would be the one who did the work. Do you get? That means you've solved this place. If you're going to do a cup, just know you're going to go the corset way, but if you don't want to go the corset way, just do this thing I said. And then you have your bralette, and then you put your flare. Also, you know that this part is smoky or sharing. Now this was I made a lot of mistake in the sharing, meaning that I put a lot of materials, so I had more than enough sharing to go for my top. So what I will do is that if you want to do sharing, if your measurement is, let me see, using size 6, 32, right? You cut out a 32 material. Now, if your size measurement is 32, you're going to add plus 5 inches. That gives you 37. So this plus 5 inches is allowance for the sharing, so that you don't have too much sharing at the end of the day. But if you're on a very big side, I think you should maybe increase it to 7. But I would not advise you to do double your size like 32 plus 32. I promise you, the sharing will not gather, it will not give you that fitted look, it's not tightened. So just add 5. If you want the bigger size, just add 7. Okay? And then 37 plus your seam allowance, which is 1, which is 38. That is what I would do. I noticed that some sharing also do a one go. Like both the front and the back is here, but me, I prefer doing my front and doing my back differently. So altogether, plus the back piece, 38. So my top is 8 plus 8, 16, 4, 7, 76. Okay, so I prefer doing the top piece and the front piece and the back piece instead of just doing them all in one go. That way, I don't waste material and the sharing gathers. And also, for you to get the fillet here, instead of making another fillet, just include the fillet in your sharing. So once you have reached your desired length, once you reach your desired length in your top, this piece will just naturally fillet. And that's how you grow the top. So I hope you understand.
You see this gown right here? This was the gown that really tested my mental health, and this should have been one of the simplest pieces I did, but because it's a wrap gown, it was really hard. So if you want to use a wrap gown to sew a flare, you really have to know your calculations. If not, you'll make a lot of mistakes, I promise you.
As simple as this gown looks, it was one of the hardest things that I made in this thrift week because the original clothes was a wrap dress and I was trying to sew flare. So the first thing I did was to cut out my front piece. Now for you to get this front piece, the mistake I did was that I started from my waist to my hips. And if you start from your waist to your hips, you're going to have a really long to sew, something like that. The flare is not going to flatter. It means that the flare is going to reach somewhere like here, and you don't want that.
So this is what I mean by a bulge. So start from under your bust to the end of your waist to get the perfect curve. The back doesn't need any calculation, and the side is just sharing. Just calculate under your armpits to your waist to get the sharing. This is basically that top that have rope by the side.
Because it's a wrap dress, so you have to buy an inside material, not a lining, because the material is obviously going to be showing out of the clothes. So you get maybe I use a white material. You get a white material, cut out your flare, cut it out, cut out your flare, and sew the white lining to the original material, and you've gotten this dress.
When I saw this dress, I knew we couldn't do a gown, but a top. But I wanted the top to be stylish because I didn't like the up part, and I knew that halter piece was going to come to the rescue.
I want you to look at this line here. Whenever you see a top with this line, it means that it has a corset form. You know that when you're sewing, we have that for the breast, for the waist, and for the back, right? So the back of the waist. Let me show you something. This is a breast cup, right? This is a breast cup. And remember what I told you, I used a size 6 to say this from here to here is 16. But if you calculate from here to here is 8, from here to here is 8, from here to here is 8, from here to here is 8. Now if you want to get a pointy breast cup, this is what you're going to do. So from this 8, from this part, this from here to here is 8, this from here to here is 4. So you don't do, this is the middle of 4. You don't use from this angle, you divide this by 2. The middle of this angle, you get your curve. And if you get the middle very well, you know that it's going to be pointing to here. This is your nipple. And you know that from below your nipple, this dart is a common dart. You will see that you get a breast, a cup that is pointing. Right? This is what you do for you. So this is how I got, though it's not obvious because I didn't double the clothes, but this is basically what I did just to make my halter neck look more flattering. This is sharing. Remember what I said about this flare? which is this part. Just cut out your material from here to here. Once you get it there, this place will basically just flare. Now, if you don't know how to get this, either you buy a halter neck top or you look for videos that graft halter neck. So that's basically it.
So for this gown, I absolutely loved the up parts, and instead of doing my usual flare, I wanted to make a tiered dress with this gown, and I still made mistakes. Remember, I'm a beginner and this is my first time, and I'm going to share these mistakes so you don't make them too.
Guys, I've got to show you what I mean by pointy corsets. I'm sure you guys have seen something like that. It's to make your breast pointy, but that's not for this one. So this is the dress, and before I turn it into a tier dress. And because I love the up, I basically just, cut it from here. You know that the clothes was a bit bigger. I just joined some parts to the hand to reduce the bulkiness of here. So that was for my top. Now, the mistake I made in that tier dress was using an elastic thread to sew my steps to get the tiers, because I don't know how to make gathers on my machine. So do not, if you're a beginner, don't ever use elastic to sew gathers for a tier dress, because what it's going to do is that instead of the dress flaring out, it's going to come together. Like it's going to be flare, but it's going to still, it's not flare, it will limit the flare of the steps. So do not ever use an elastic thread. Instead, when you want to sew your your first flare, what you do is that when you go to your machine, do not do a reverse stitch at the beginning, to knot your sewing. Do not do a reverse stitch. And when you get to the end, do not also lock the stitch by doing a reverse stitch. So what that helps you to do is that you can start pulling the thread, that is the down thread, and you see that it will just gather. As I pull it gently, it will gather. Good. So if you want to make a tiered dress, tiered skirt, first of all, what length do you want the tier to be? So if I want my length to be an 18 and I want 3 steps, I'm going to do this is my lining, right? This is my lining. From here to here is 18, right? And then I want to do 18 divided by 3. So because I want to do 3 steps, you do 18 divided by 3, which is 6. So each flare will have a length of 6. Do you understand? From here to here will be 6. Okay? That's how you get the length of your steps. Now, you're going to now do that. See, from here to here, you count 6. You use your chalk and mark 6. Okay? And then, forget about this material. Forget about this side. If you're doing a 3 step, it means that your first step will be here, second step here, and your third step here. So it helps for doing 4 steps that to be here. So you know that from here to here is 6. And if you add the third tier, it means that from here to here will now be an 18. Okay? So once you've gotten that, you will sew your steps on each line. Now, as you're saying, when you want to sew your steps, you're going to leave a 1 inch at the beginning and sew, and leave 1 inch at the end. This will help you finish off neatly. So when you're done, you're going to turn your material, you're going to turn your lining. Remember, you're using a lining. You're going to turn your lining and sew it together. You're going to sew it together. And when you're sewing it together, make sure that the steps are not touching the lining that you're sewing. This will help it flare out. And then when you're done sewing the lining, you're now going to sew the steps too. And I'm going to sew the steps. That 1 inch you left at the front and the end is what I'm going to use to close off each step. And there you have it, your tiered dress. I think in part 2 I made a tiered dress. You will see the reason why I say do not use an elastic to sew your flare. It will limit it. Okay?
Also, I forgot to mention, for the width of your flare, you're going to use your hip measurement plus 17. That is what you're going to use for the width of your lining. And make sure that the flare is longer than the width of the lining so that it can gather properly. I made a correct measurement. I made a correct thing of tier dress in my part 2. So watch out for my part 2.